Welcome to Saving America with Dr. David Schein. Dr. Schein is in Houston, Texas. He's the professor at the University of St. Thomas. He's an attorney. He's the author of the book, The Decline of America, which we'll tell you more about later and how you can get it. And he writes articles, helps small businesses, and has been especially paying attention to all that during the coronavirus pandemic. So, Dr. Schein, welcome. It's time to do Saving America again.
Thank you, Sandy. Always a pleasure to be with you.
It's so much fun. I love it too, David. Thank you. And by the way, you're welcome to put comments in at any time, and I'll give them to David. So we're going to talk about, as we have in the past episodes, we have 3 different segments. First one, in the news.
Taking what they're giving because I'm working for a living.
And today, Dr. Schein is going to talk about the Dnc Convention, which has been in the news for some time, and about the lies told by Barack and Michelle Obama.
Well, thank you, Sandy. And it was particularly interesting and especially ingenuous to have the 2 big rock stars, because it sure wasn't Biden's appearance last week at the convention, but it seemed that the biggest news stories were Michelle Obama earlier in the week, and then Barack Obama, kind of midweek toward the end of the program. And it was fascinating to me because as you know, the media went apoplectic when there were pictures of children being restrained in cages, a very horrible looking picture, and it evaporated from the news almost as quickly as it appeared when someone realized, because of the dates on the photos, that this was during Obama-Biden administration. It was not during the Trump administration that these pictures of children in cages at border retention centers were made. And so it seemed to me that the issue had been resolved. And Michelle Obama, who I think is still trying to forge some relevancy for herself, is brought it up again and again made this totally false statement. Now, it is true that Trump has limited traffic across the border, which is related to reducing drug trafficking. Drugs are a very serious problem in the United States, so reducing drug trafficking is actually a good thing. Also, reducing illegal immigration into the United States. And on another episode, we're going to talk about how important legal immigration is to the United States. It's critical to America's future, but it's certainly a controversial issue today. But I thought it was interesting that she made a blatantly false statement and nobody called her out on it that I've seen. And then Barack Obama gets up there and talks about what a wonderful job he did. And let me just remind our viewers that in his 8-year administration, this was not a 2 or 4 year administration, it was 8-year administration. And for the first half of that, he had both houses of Congress. For the next 2 years, he had just the House. And then for the last 2 years, admittedly, he had lost both houses of Congress due to his incompetent administration. But it was interesting to me because he got up there and made it sound like the United States had done wonderful during his 8 years. And the statistical fact is quite straightforward. The worst recovery from a recession in American history, going back to the Great Depression of 1929 to 1939, the worst recovery was the Obama recovery. And we ran up the national debt, although Trump has made some new inroads into running up the national debt. But again, blatantly false statements that really were unbecoming, in my opinion, to a former president or a former first lady.
Okay, so yes, I didn't watch any of the convention, but I did see that it was in the news all week long. So yes, that's a very good in the news segment. And then the next thing will be the rumor of the week, which is The Postal Service, what's going on with the Postal Service? Is it okay without Trump fixing it? Or do we need to have it fixed? And then we've had a lot of rumors since the DNC. So tell us about some of the rumors that have been floating around and on social media as well as in the media.
Well, sure. What's happened is the United States Postal Service has been a disaster for probably 40 years. And I remember as a youngster how important the mail was to the United States. Almost every American family looked forward to a mail delivery and maybe a card from grandma, or grandma looking forward to a card from little Johnny or little Susie or whatever. And it was, and we had the same mailmen, predominantly men back then. In our neighborhoods, we got to know the people. We would give them little Christmas presents. I mean, it was a very different America. Today, here in the Houston Heights, we have about 4 different mail people a week. We have men and women. We have people of different races, which is all good things. Diversity in the Postal Service is a good thing. But the Postal Service has largely failed at its dramatically reduced role in America. First of all, only a few people who cannot figure out how to use a computer, and even there are very few people in rest homes in America who don't know how to use a computer. Virtually all of us have our bills sent electronically, pay our bills electronically, and checks are so 19th to 20th century. I mean, we're really moving away from even mailing checks to pay our bills. I know I don't pay hardly any bill by check today. So I did have a couple of things come up where I did try and mail 2 checks since first of the year. I had a $1,200 check never delivered. A $1,200 check never delivered since first of the year. And that check has never shown up. I mailed a gift to a family member in Virginia Beach, and that check never showed up. The card in the check was a get well card with a check in it. And I then put a stop payment on the check. 7 weeks after I had mailed it, I put a stop payment on that check and replaced it by doing Venmo, which, as you know, is an electronic money service. The money was delivered within seconds. Got to my sister, my relative up there needed some help. And a week after that, or 2 months after I mailed the get well card with the check in it, it came back to me saying the address was insufficient. It was the correct address on the card.
Oh, wow.
And so if anybody thinks that the mail service is doing a great job, I think they're really blowing smoke. I mean, for the Democrats to get out there and say Trump has, if you pardon the pun, trumped this up in order to change things, it's wrong. One thing I would like them to see is I'd like to see them to quadruple the cost of bulk mail. I don't know what it looks like at your place, but at our place, most of the mail goes directly into our recycling bin. Yep. Most of our mail, and we don't open it. We look at the return address, and if it says bulk rate, we don't open the envelopes. And the only reason this scourge continues to come in is because the Postal Service artificially reduces the cost of that. And I think that if they made it cost efficient, meaning that the Postal Service at least broke even to do it, they would significantly increase the cost. And again, I'm not trying to be mean to anybody out there, but I mean, it's a business whose time has come to end. We mostly communicate through electronics today. Most of our coupons are electronic. Most of our bill paying and bill submission is electronic. It's time for us to get real and face the facts. And the Postal Service has become a bloated, mismanaged operation, typical of our badly managed federal and state governments. It's a poster child, no pun intended, for that. So what I'm advocating, and I have been a longtime supporter of 4 or 5 day a week delivery, for them to continue to do this farce of 6-day-a-week delivery. Certainly, we've had such poor mail service since COVID-19 that if we didn't think we could get along without 6-day-a-week delivery before, we've proven that we can get by with much less delivery than we used to. And so I'd like to see the Postal Service be treated honestly and in a nonpartisan way, and they need to clean up their act. And there's no rumor related to that, in my opinion. It's a badly run operation. Now, the reason this all came up is because the Democrats, who specialize in corruption, in my opinion, at many levels, want the mail-in ballots because it's easier to defraud the voters by collecting, and there's a practice called harvesting. Harvesting is where a political operative goes out to nursing homes and other such facilities and collects ballots, and we don't know if the ballots get delivered or not. But it's somebody who is partisan. It is not the Postal Service, and it is not a nonpartisan individual. So the mail-in ballots, the reason it has been opposed is because it does represent in a number of states a very risky proposition of our losing our valuable right to vote because of the potential, enormous potential for fraud. And I don't think that's I don't think that Trump's out there trying to do this because he thinks that it's a Democratic ploy. But the statistics that I've heard on these mail-in ballots is one state has proposed, I think it's New Jersey, they're going to propose to send a mail-in ballot to everybody who's registered to vote. The problem is there are more people registered to vote than there are eligible voters in the state. Why? Because when people die, for some magic reason, they don't bother to contact the voter registration as they're on their deathbed and say, hey, by the way, I'm gone. Don't keep me on the rolls. And there's very little cleanup done. So anyway, but so I think this UPS situation is UPSS, the United States Postal Service, is a fraudulent representation. It's a false rumor that Trump's trying to manipulate things, and I think he is trying to protect the electorate. And certainly we need reform in the Postal Service, and we need it now. We need it dramatically. And I understand that it's largely blown over because Trump has agreed to have the person who he put in charge to clean the mess up to wait until after the election just to take it off the table as a political football. But it is, and I think what I'd like to see America do in the near future is to do a voter registration reform and actually start sending a postcard to everybody and saying you can't vote next time if you don't submit your voter renewal situation, because many people have moved and to other states or to other communities, and they are now registered wherever they went, and they're still registered where they were, and those type of things allow for ballot fraud.
Very interesting. Yes, that's definitely been a rumor going around with all kind of aspects to it. So yes, I love the clarification on the post office. And I too had a check I sent someone that never got there. I stopped payment on it, but it still never did arrive. So we've all got similar experiences, I think, to that. And then the final segment, just the facts. And Dr. Schein's going to talk about the national debt and how it will kill this country for generations to come.
I get no doubt.
Now, we want to talk about something that is very near and dear to your heart, as you've told me in the past. And so just the facts on the national debt.
The national debt has become the biggest non-issue in America, and it's a disgrace. And it's a nonpartisan nonpartisan issue. We're like the person who says about their checkbook that I can't be out of money, I still have checks. And when you are the United States government, you can keep printing money even if you're out of money. And the United States has been out of money for a long time. The national debt is creeping up to, just astronomical proportions. And what's interesting is I would think that the Democrats, who are mad right now because Trump won't add another $1 trillion to the national debt to give to undeserving states and localities who have allowed people to trash their infrastructure, like Portland and Seattle and New York City and Richmond, Virginia, and some other places that have been controlled by liberal administrations. And I think it's very important for people to understand that the national debt is a real number. It's money owed to people. It's money owed to China. It's money owed to other countries. It's money owed to investors. And many Americans participate in 401k and 403b plans. And some of those plans do hold U.S. treasuries. And the only reason they can even sustain the current national debt is that at the very present time, we have, for the second time in 20 years, lowered our federal interest rate to almost zero. It was lowered to zero during the 08-09 recession. And with the collapse of the economy following COVID-19, it is back down there again in the very low area. And here is the great risk to America. Every single one of us is that as things recover, that interest rate is going to creep back up. And at a certain point, we will be paying a small fortune every single minute of every single day for years and years and years to keep this debt, just the service on the debt, done. And it's interesting because if you go out and you talk to people who are grandparents and maybe great grandparents, because we all live a long time today, we get to see multiple generations. One of the things, if you sat down and talked to grandma and granddad and everybody, they're going to tell you, I hope for a better future for my children's children's children. That's part of what I hope in my life. And a lot of people leave money for their children to help them with college and to help them get established. And maybe it wasn't so easy for them, but they want it to be easier for their children. And one of the things that I think many Americans overlook, because both political parties play this down. I mean, I haven't heard Trump once come out and say, oh my God, we've borrowed $4 trillion. We got to stop somewhere. Nobody's saying that. So it's fascinating that the Dems are after Trump, because he's been spending it as fast as you would think they would want to spend it. They're mad because he hasn't spent even more. But at some point, as the cliche goes, you've got to pay the piper. And, as you know, bankruptcy is a very serious problem in America. We haven't really seen the run of COVID-19 bankruptcies, but we had an enormous number of home foreclosures from 08 into about 2010, 2011. And we've had a lot of personal bankruptcies, and we are facing another round of that. And the federal government needs to face the fact that at some point here, we need to start paying down our national debt, not just not running it up even more, but paying it down. And what's a great shame is a lot of people, when I get partisan, get into Bill Clinton and say, well, he may have been a bum, but by golly, didn't the economy do well? And in my book, I talk about the fact that since the economy moves in large cycles, that Bill Clinton was unquestionably the luckiest person in recent history to serve in the White House. He managed to get through with no 9/11 or other types of crises, and he managed to avoid a period of any recession, significant recession, so forth. And so it's very interesting for me. But even during that period of what are reported to be good economic times, we did have periods where we didn't add as much to the national debt, But even when we could have had a fully balanced budget, we did not really balance the budget, and we did not pay down the national debt. And again, that was unfortunately, since the end of the Clinton administration in the year 2000, we have not had another window of relief because of the way things unfortunately have gone with just a series of crises during the George W. Bush administration, and then the poor recovery under Obama. And then Trump comes in and was getting the economy on track, but again, did it by bumping the national debt. And then since COVID-19 started this year, the national debt has been really bumped. So we need to start. What I understand from Trump's earlier promises, and this, of course, is something every politician says, is elect me for 4 more years, and I'm going to put that national debt on the table. Trump's been pretty good at delivering what he says he's going to do. Doesn't mean it's going to happen, but at least he goes out and tries to get it done. And I sure hope that if he does get reelected, that he will make number one, stop borrowing. Number two, put us on a path to paying off the national debt. And at this point, a program to pay off the national debt would be 30 to 40 years in the future. That's how bad it is.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that, because that does definitely affect us and our children and grandchildren for the next. And that's if we started now, it'd be 30 or 40 years. We haven't started, so who knows how long. But thank you, David, for that emphasis on the facts about our national debt. I do want to, again, remind you that as we prepare for the coming election, here's your study guide. This is a report on every president from Woodrow Wilson to Barack Obama, and how, and it addresses the very same questions for each one. How did they handle any crises? How about the debt for them? So look through it. Get this book. It's available on Amazon as an ebook or a print book. So, and if you want an autographed copy of it, you can contact me in the comments and I'll be happy to get one for you. So not free, but I'll get you one. So if you want to pay for an autographed copy, I'll get it. But get it, whatever, however, whenever, get it now so that you can start preparing for some of the facts that have taken place in the past. And we all know the saying that unless we look at history and study history, we're doomed to repeat history. So look at that and see who you believe is the most eligible person running for office in this November election, which will be coming up in a couple of months. I do want to say that next week, David will be talking about the impact of COVID-19 on education, particularly higher education. David is in higher education. He is a professor at the University of St. Thomas here in Houston, Texas. So I can't wait to hear, although some of the things we have seen, this is in the news, the impact of COVID-19 on education. And then he's also, of course, going to be giving us a report on the Republican Convention, which is going on this week. So that'll be very interesting. Join us again next week. We were a little bit off on our time today. Next week will be 2 p.m. Central Time. Join us right here for a Facebook Live. David, thank you very much. I think this is going to get a lot of attraction as we go closer and closer to the election. And then afterwards, we'll have to talk about the fallout from the election and what happened. So we have lots to talk about for quite a while. So
no question.
Thank you very much. So join us again next week for Saving America with Dr. David Schein.